If we can accept the idea, though perhaps somewhat laughably these days, that the government should serve as a model for its citizens, let's talk about what message that government sends to us, the American people, when it responds to massive, frightening deficits and debt by creating larger deficits and more debt. And even worse, they won't tell us the truth. They claim programs they know will increase the deficit, such as the health care bill of 2010, will actually reduce the deficit, and they do it with a straight face. Now, do you believe the trillions we spend on this health care bill will actually reduce the deficit? Well, let's remember Medicare and how they told us it was going to be self-sustaining. Instead, it's now $35 trillion in the hole, deep in the hole like every other federal entitlement program. And remember that big stimulus bill, which cost $1 trillion, that they promised would jumpstart the economy and produce 3 million new jobs? Instead, we've lost almost 3 million jobs. Welcome to Washington, where the Congress has seen its job approval numbers plummet below 20%. Chances are you're one of the 80% who don't approve. Now, if you're optimistic by nature like me, you would still have a lot of trouble refuting the fact that we are on the road to bankruptcy and ultimately the road to serfdom described by the brilliant free market economist F.A. Hayek. You should read some of his work, F.A. Hayek. Now, all of us have faced times when money's been tight, when we've had to lower our sights, make hard choices, trim our budgets. But imagine if you faced such a situation and decided the way out was to actually spend more and create a larger shortfall. Or imagine telling your child who'd run out of money that the best thing to do was to go out and borrow some more money and keep on spending just the way he had before. This is exactly what the federal government has done with impunity. It seems there's no such thing as a hard choice for politicians who continue to take more and more of our hard-earned money and run up massive and growing deficits year after year. And you know, it's not like such reckless spending has been limited to one party or the other. As members of Congress from both sides of the aisle keep feeding at the trough, it's our children and grandchildren who will pay. Now, numbers can be dizzying, but let's talk about a couple that really illustrate the mess in which we find ourselves. Number one, we're now more than $13 trillion in debt, and based on the 2010 budget, we'll be adding an average of $1 trillion to that debt every year through 2020. Number two, by the time our grandchildren come of age in the next 10 to 20 years, they will each inherit roughly the equivalent of a $200,000 mortgage with no house attached. If you're as outraged at this as we are, tell your friends and contact your congressman now and tell him to stop the spending. As we'll discuss in part 2 of Stop the Spending, we are one generation away or less from economic implosion or another great American recovery. We'll talk about why.